Part 8. Paranoia. Christina moved to Chicago, hoping that a city of millions of people could hide her. She found a job as a barista, made friends with her roommate, and even enrolled in night classes in photography. Trying to live a normal life, she forbade herself to think about the past. But the feeling that she was being watched did not let go. She checked all the locks 5 times, installed extra cameras, and didn't use social media. Still, the fear returned. Rustles outside the window, strange phone calls, silence on the other end of the line. One day, coming home from work, Christina saw an envelope in her mailbox. Inside was a picture of her apartment, taken from the street. On the back was written, "Do you like living in the big city?" Part 9. The game begins. Christina went to the police, but again got no help. The officers said they didn't have enough evidence to start an investigation. In desperation, she turned to a private detective. A man in his 50s named Jackson agreed to help her for a modest fee by beginning to look into her past internet activity. "You'd be surprised how much information you can find, even in anonymous profiles," he said as he scrolled through her old photos. A couple days later, he broke the news. Darkwatcher 13's account was linked to a VPN, but one of the donation transactions went unsecured. He was able to trace it back to a man named Eric Morgan. Eric lived in Indianapolis, a couple hours away from her old home. Eric is a software engineer. "It's likely he used his skills to access your data," Jackson informed her. Part 10. The unpleasant truth. The detective decided to visit Eric, but returned with disturbing news. The man hadn't shown up for work in weeks. His apartment looked deserted, but there was a mass of unopened letters lying in the mailbox. "Just because he's disappeared doesn't mean he's left you alone," Jackson said. Meanwhile, Christina's fear had reached a climax. One night she heard the creaking of floorboards in the apartment. Grabbing a knife, she slowly approached her room, but no one was there. A small hole had been cut in the window, exactly big enough for someone to peek through. Part 11. Final visit. A few days later, Jackson called her and told her he'd found another lead. He had found an address connected to Eric and suggested they go there together. The house turned out to be old and abandoned. It smelled damp inside, and the walls were covered in graffiti and mold. However, what they found in the basement made them freeze with horror. Dozens of pictures of Christina hung on the walls. Old pictures from social media, footage from her OnlyFans, and images taken through the window of her apartment. In the center of the room stood a mannequin wearing a red scarf. On it hung a note, "You have come to me, my lily." Part 12. The denouement. Jackson called the police, but while they waited, Christina felt someone watching them. She turned and saw Eric standing in the shadows. His face was covered in ugly scars, and he held a knife in his hands. "I've been waiting for you," he said, looking her straight in the eye. A struggle ensued. Jackson managed to disarm Eric before the police arrived. He was arrested, and Christina hoped that now the nightmare was finally over. Epilogue. A few months later, Christina moved to New York City. She changed her name, deleted all her accounts, and started a new life. One morning, however, as she entered a cafe, she noticed something strange. There was a dark red handkerchief on the table by the window. For a moment she thought it was a coincidence, but then she saw the writing on the napkin. "I promised I would always find you.